Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Fleet Geeks. I nearly said half a dozen things. Fleet Geeks podcast. I'm really pleased to see you today, and I hope that you guys are keeping well. It's been a little while since I've recorded a podcast, actually, because several of them were recorded pre-Christmas. I'm here in my new coaching shed, which is fantastic. It's here at our flagship offices. It's a separate building as part of the suite of buildings here, where we share our premises with one of our clients, who are Rose Group. Hello and welcome to today's session on what is a practical OLAT. So interestingly, I've seen these two words, or this word and abbreviation come together a couple of times now. So I felt that it's time to shed some light on the subject. Now, some of you may have come across the term practical OLAT or practical refresher for transport managers, and I felt that it's something that's sort of relatively new. Some people may not be aware of it or heard that terminology before, so it'd be good to sort of dispel the myth. Now, I first came across it probably about 3 or 4 months ago, when it was placed as an undertaking on one of our clients following PI in the southern region, with the southern based traffic commissioner, or southeast and London based, and it was part of their undertaking. Whilst it was a restricted operator, and whilst they'd already done an OLAT, the terminology used was a theoretical OLAT, which many of us already know as OLAT anyway, but essentially theoretical, as is TMCPC theoretical, because it's classroom based. And actually, there's this thing called a practical OLAT. Now, one of the things that I want to make really, really clear is the key differences that I understand, and where you can go to get this, where you can get this practical OLAT. Now, previously, as far as I'm aware, there's only been a handful of providers who provide a practical OLAT option. And what I would like to say is that flagship partners, my business, are here to help you. We can provide a practical OLAT for you. The key differentiator is in that term practical. So the principle being based on, and I've not seen this as an undertaking in other regions from traffic commissioners. It's certainly something in the southern region that I've seen come up. And the principle behind it is that whilst the classroom course is useful, the suggestion is that a practical element will come to your workplace and support you with the practical elements of carrying out your role from an O licensed transport manager perspective. So what's different, and how does it differ? The key thing is that the purpose of this course will be to go through dealing with incidents and accidents practically, this is what goes on from a practical transport manager perspective, understanding what the undertakings are and making sure you understand specifically how to stay compliant. So this is useful for restricted operators, but also potentially for newer transport managers, or transport managers who have maybe not been doing the role for a very long time, or haven't had training in a period of time as well. Understanding exactly what records need to be kept, as well as how to actually do gate checks and ensure that driver walk-around checks are properly managed, is another part of this practical course. How to carry out a driver's license check, for example. As you'll see, these are things that aren't actually included in the transport manager qualification, and may be covered theoretically in a normal OLAT or transport manager refresher, but this one's very much about being able to do the actual course itself at that time, and also to give some support around what day-to-day activities need to be done, how to schedule inspections, how to ensure that tachograph analysis is done properly, downloading and operating of tachographs, and also managing, dealing and challenging where necessary maintenance providers, to ensure that we properly understand understand inspection records and understand brake tests as well. So it's a full day, and really very, very similar to a standard OLAT, but it's in a much more practical setting. So we would be ensuring that we'd go through your data, if that makes sense. So we would go through your experiences and your work as well. So therefore, it's much more like a day's consultancy rather than a day's actual training, because we'd run this in small groups rather than in a bigger classroom setting. So it's much more focused on you and your needs specifically.
Hello, it's Shani from Flagship Partners. We are really proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast. If you need expert advice or training for your fleet business, make Flagship Partners your first choice. We are really excited to announce the launch of our Transport Manager Academy. With expert development for fleet leaders, we offer fully accredited initial Transport Manager CPC training, CPC refresher, and operator license awareness training, as well as mentoring, support, and professional development beyond the qualification. Our vision is to develop elite fleet professionals.
I thought that was quite interesting, and that obviously it's something that's becoming more and more apparent and important for certainly the southern and London region, that's something that's coming up. So if you're in the market for a practical OLAT, or that's something that you need, please do get in touch, because we are able to help support that. And if you're not aware of it, then do have a look. And obviously you've listened to this podcast now, but ultimately that is it. So there isn't really, some of you will be listening and going, well, what's the key difference between that and a normal OLAT? I think there's this term around it being practical, meaning that rather than it being theoretical delivered content in a classroom, it's actually almost like, I try and suggest it's similar to an audit in a way. So when Flagship go in and do an audit with a client, we have a set of specifications or expectations, and we go in and we audit a customer against those. And this falls somewhere between the two areas, where this is much more, it's an OLAT, but it's around, rather than us delivering learning content, it's around, let's have a look at your specific information that you have. What are your inspection records? How are you managing your inspections? And we'll help guide through the learning process as part of that practical OLAT. So we would talk through specifically in your scenario how that's going to happen, which is why I think we do it in smaller groups. And it might be a 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, rather than a bigger classroom setting. That does mean that the investment will be more, but no doubt that is part of the requirement to ensure that it's needed. And actually, I think it's a really great course for particularly restricted operators, because it's all well and good one thing learning the theory part of it as part of the OLAT, and the usual operator license awareness training, which is very theoretical based and classroom based. This is much more around, if you're going to be the key responsible person, what are the things on a day-to-day basis you need to be doing? And rather than telling you, we're going to show you, and we're going to walk you through it. So that's the key differentiator. And I see this becoming a bigger course, or more commonly requested as time goes on. I see that becoming a trend in the industry as we develop. So probably more questions than answers for those of you listening. And there's very interesting courses. My good friend Tom Reddy, who supports through MDR training, they offer a course called Transport Manager Unlocked, which is essentially the follow-on course from a Transport Manager CPC course. I'm just going to call that out because I believe that's a great course. Tom does 2 days of, right, you've passed your Transport Manager course, but this is what the actual job is. And I believe that's a really good course. But this differs again slightly from that, because this is for people who are in role and carrying out the day-to-day work of a transport manager or responsible person for an operator license. And it's very practical around, these are the things you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It may be added, for example, to one of your undertakings. I've certainly seen it a couple of times now in that region, added to the undertakings for operators. So therefore, it's something that's very much on the radar. What experience have you had with a practical OLAT? And have you been requested for it? I'm interested to hear, so please do drop me a comment or let me know what your thoughts are and what you think about that difference between a normal OLAT where it'd be delivered in a classroom and you'd get all of that content, all of that theory be delivered to you on a day's basis, compared with smaller classrooms and much more focused. So, the person who's coming along will be bringing their laptop, they'll be bringing their data, they'll be bringing their information, and then they'll go through with a trainer exactly how to do the day-to-day. So very much more showing rather than telling, which I think is an interesting change. And maybe that's the future. Maybe that's the future of industry training in our sector. Maybe that will be the future, but it's certainly something that I've been seeing more and more regularly. Have you seen it? Like I say, I've seen it in the south, in the southern and London region. Have you seen it as an undertaking in other parts of the country? I'd be really keen to hear your take on that. See if you've had more information on the Practical OLAT and what you guys think about that. Really interesting developments for 2025, and I hope that this podcast has been informational. And like I say, if you are in the market for a Practical OLAT, if you've been asked one, then we can support that at Flagship Partners. Please do give us a shout, and we'll provide information that you need to get that, as well as the certificate and details of what the course is. I hope that's been really interesting. Obviously, there are other providers out there, but this is my podcast, so obviously I get to promote my stuff. But I know you're not here necessarily to buy my stuff. You're here for your CPD. I just thought I'd raise the awareness of it. The people I'm speaking to in the industry, many of them haven't heard of this or recognised it as a trend that's coming. So hopefully this will just raise your levels of awareness and get get tongues moving, get people talking, and discussing whether I think it's a good idea or not. I think it's a great idea to be far more practical in our training and making sure that we're being really specific around how we're helping people and showing them to be able to do the work themselves. I think that's a really good way of helping ensure people are compliant. So I hope this has been a useful podcast. Please do subscribe and share, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Sadly, we were due to have 3 podcasts with Waitmans, but there was an issue with one of the recordings. So we're just waiting for the re-recording of that. So there's another one coming soon with Sarah and Elliot. So really looking forward to that, talking more about the responsibilities of transport managers and health and safety. Once that's re-recorded, because like I say, there's a technical issue with that will be coming out soon too. Please do let me know, what do you want podcasts about? Is there anything specifically that you're interested in, any particular part of the industry or something you want to learn more about? And I will do a podcast on it. Is there anyone particularly you'd like me to interview? Because I'm always interested in guests. And if you would like me to interview you, why not drop me an email? It'd be great to chat to you. I am always looking for inspiration for these weekly podcasts to ensure that I continue to deliver value for the listeners. So please do stick with me. Make sure you subscribe, and I will make sure that I deliver you great value on the podcast for 2025. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you on another one soon.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.